Hey, yo! All right. Come on in. Sit on down. Because guess what? You're here, I'm here, and we made it. What? We made it, y'all. We made it. Hey, man, we made it through all the trials, the obstacles, the fails, the mishaps, the ups and downs. Man, I am glad that you are here. We made it, man. I'm so glad that God gave me the opportunity to produce this podcast, man. Cause all glory to him first and foremost. I gotta give him things. But before we get acquainted, just come on in and sit on down. Sit on down. Hey, sit on down. Come get some of this word, this knowledge, this wisdom, this happiness, this joy, this peace. However, this podcast will produce in your life, man, I'm glad that you are here. Now, before we get started with all the theatrics and what we're about to go over to today, you have to know why are you here and what is this podcast? What is this? There's many out there. There's lots out there, but what is this podcast retained to? Well, you are watching the all new podcast Phases. Phases is the podcast where we explore the myriad ways our lives evolve over time. I'm your host. TK is 909. You already know. We all experience different phases as we grow. And these phases shape who we are. How we were in the past is often very different from who we are now, thanks to these phases. Here on Phases, we dive deep. We go deep, man. We dive deep into the lives of normal people, highlighting the challenges, obstacles, their family dynamics, accomplishments that shaped who they became today. And I bring that all to my audience. Why? One simple reason: for us to stay connected with each other. How often you at a grocery store, school, baseball game, football game, in the public, in the general eye, and you just walk past people, drive past people, not knowing the stories behind them. So we highlight the stories of normal people, people like you and I, man. You and I, we have awesome stories, awesome testimonies that we have dealt with. And some of these phases help shape who we become today. And these phases, my phases, your phases, together, our phases can teach, can help, can educate, can motivate someone who might be going through times, someone who might be going through the obstacles in life, the journey in life, to help them get over that hill. So over a slew of episodes, yes, I said that word, slew, many, plentiful episodes that we're going to have on this podcast. I am excited to bring you their journeys, and I'm excited for them to give their journeys so that you and I could attain what we always wanted. I don't know, wherever that is to you. Welcome to an all new episode of Phases. But first, thanks to our sponsors, check this out. Listen up to all my builders out there. Need a permit for your upcoming project? Listen, I know it can be a bit confusing, frustrating, and one mistake can delay your entire project, costing you time and, of course, money. Well, look no further. That's where Easy Permit Express comes in. Whether you need a building permit, residential permit, ADU, or a simple pool permit, whatever it is for your property or business, Easy Permit Express has you covered. At Easy Permit Express, permitting is available no matter what county, city, or state you're in. They're affordable, keep you updated, and handle all the details so you don't have to from start to finish. Log on to Easy Permit Express today to answer all your questions about your upcoming project and dealing with permitting. Let Easy Permit Express handle the permits while you focus on your project. So, guys, for our next guest, I'm so excited to introduce this guy. He has a powerful, awesome testimony. And I'm so excited to see what God's going to do in his life and how he's going to use this testimony to help motivate, encourage someone who may need in this phase of their life. So without further introduction, let me introduce you to your very own Yeah, your boy, TK is 909. Hi, how's it going? My name is Tim Davison, also known as TK is 909, and I'm the creator and founder of this podcast, FAZES. I am from California, Inland Empire. Now, for those of you guys who don't know what is the Inland Empire, well, it's a mix of small cities in an area. It's just south of LA. So you will have Colton, Rancho Cucamonga, Ontario, Rialto, Fontana, San Bernardino. So it's just a mix of small cities in Southern California, which make up the Inland Empire. Growing up, I grew up in San Bernardino, California. That's where I was born. 1988, a king was born. Yeah. I come from a two-parent household up until I was about 10 or 11 years old when my dad was in a very serious car accident. And then shortly after that, my dad and my mom split up. So about my teenage years, my mom was basically a single parent raising four boys. I am the second oldest. My childhood was pretty normal, what I thought. I mean, you don't know how devastating things are until you get older and experience new cities and new states and new countries that how bad your situation was as a kid. But for the most part, like anyone else, we had a pretty normal childhood. We weren't rich, very, I wouldn't say middle class, I would say just below middle class. My mom did the best she can trying to raise four boys on her own. Salute to her. She always will give her last to us, whether it be for shoes, for clothing, food. So it was a lot that went on that she tried to provide as much as she can for us, and she did her best. And I thank her for that. She's really inspired me to do things like this because she's a very strong woman, and she did what she can to raise four boys. We had what we needed to survive early on. I just seen a lot of things, man. I started knew I was quite different as a kid, man. Just witnessing things. My mother and father, their situation was quite unique, interesting. It was a lot of fighting in the home, a lot of turmoil. Even up until the day before my dad got into a car accident, it just wasn't a good environment far as emotionally. My dad was a very stern man before the car accident. He raised us well. And still to this day, I truly believe if that car accident never happened, I think my brothers and I would be further along because he just was a disciplinary man. He wasn't no nonsense. When it's time to clean up, it's time to clean up. It was a yes sir, no sir. He was one of those dads that he was proud of his four boys. My mom was proud of us as well too. I can remember in our early stages with my brothers, man, she used to always dress us alike. So whenever we go to family functions, we all used to be wearing the same clothing. Like it looked like quadruplets, basically. I remember even down to our haircuts. We had the bowl cuts with the ducktail in the back. My dad was very proud that he had four strong boys, and my mother and father, it seemed to me that they loved each other, but at times in the household, I can see things just going south. I remember early on, my father was very abusive verbally and physically to my mom. And I can remember waking up late at night to hear my mom screaming and yelling. And you can hear the thumping in the next room. You can hear chaos in the next room. And I would try to hide or cover my ears as much as possible. And but it always woke me up, man. I can always remember the arguments that went on, and but I also remember the love and the laughter and the joy that went on as well too. It wasn't all bad, but there was a lot that went on in my household that even my brothers and I that I still don't know their thoughts of it. I haven't talked to them about it, but it was a very chaotic household, but loving at times, but it can be chaotic at times. My earliest memories from my dad for the car accident and after the car accident. Just in my opinion, I don't know how my brothers feel about it. Again, I haven't talked to them about it, but I know that it was two different type of men. Before the car accident, I was at the age where we can play football. And I remember he used to drive us to football practice, and I remember him working a job at Pizza Hut, bringing us home these personal pan pizzas just so we can eat. He provided for us. He took care of us. Even though he was still abusive towards my mom, he still took care of us and made sure that we had everything that we need. And I was very grateful. I looked up to him. So I was very grateful and appreciative of what he did for us at an early age. But that still doesn't neglect the other things that went on in the household, far as his anger and his temper and his frustration and him blaming my mom for a lot of things and just his own insecurities that really trickled down onto us as kids. It wasn't until after the car accident where he started to rear his head of who he truly was, and it was a lot of influence from his family. He comes from a family of 16 kids, and he was the second oldest. It was a lot that he was dealing with mentally that he didn't express verbally in a good manner, in a healthy state. It was more physical than anything. We got spankings. His anger, I quickly knew that he had at an early age. Moving from San Bernardino to Rialto, we're moving from hood to hood. After the car accident in '97, he was a totally changed man. But we all felt the impact because at one point we thought he wasn't going to make it. He was in a car, his friend was driving, he was in the passenger seat, and I believe the car was turning right, and his friend wasn't paying attention, and I believe the car hit the driver's side. But somehow my dad took the most of the impact. But my dad was in a passenger seat in the car ended up taking them both out, and my dad end up flying through the windshield and hitting the pavement and slid a couple of feet from the car. My mom got the call, and I remember my mom ended up going to the scene, and she described the scene for us, saying that he was ejected through the windshield and slid across the pavement, and it was a pretty severe car accident. And for a while, my family, my mom, my grandma, they didn't think he would live. Dealing with that ordeal of being in and out of the hospital, going back and forth, trying to compartmentalize what this really is. I just thought, oh, maybe he's in a hospital. Just like anything else, you just think as a kid, like your dad's good, he's all right, he's Superman, nothing can hurt him, and life will go on as normal. But unfortunately, it really took a severe on his body to where he was in a coma for a few months, and then it was times where even my family was questioning if they should pull the plug because it didn't look good. It almost looked like he almost had passed, but through the grace of God, he spared his life and he made it through that. I just remember that taking a toll on my mom. My dad took care of the house financially. My mom took care of us in the home, nurtured us the best way she can. So she didn't know how to be a leader in this absence. So it took a toll on us. It definitely affected us. Like I said, she did the best she can. And I remember driving back from home to hospital days in and days out, and things just start getting chaotic, man. I saw the evilness in my aunties and uncles towards my mom. My dad's side of the family is very bothered and angered at each other. They deal with a lot of frustration that still to this day, it's a tough love type of family. My dad used to tell us he loved us and he used to have talks with us and tell us how much he's proud of us. But outside of that, his father, I believe, never told him he loved him. They never had a good relationship between the both of them. So it was a lot of tough love. Even with my aunties and uncles, it was a lot of tough love, a lot of fighting. And I just see how my aunties and uncles would turn on my mom. Not all of them, but most of them. They just dealt with their anger in a different type of manner. You try to understand what's going on, but no one's really talking to you. You just see your mom crying times after time, and all these things that are going on. in the family. But like I said, to us, it was just a normal thing. And it started wearing down on us. I remember my early stages when my dad started to get his body back and everything started coming into fruition as a recovery. I remember when they transferred him to one hospital to a rehab center and just seeing him, full of bandages and all these things and not understanding why can't he come home and why is he hurt. No one really sat us down and talked to us and helped us understand what was going on. It was just your dad is in a car accident, he's in a hospital, go. It wasn't like, hey, let's just take a second, let's explain to his sons, explain to his boys what is really going on. And I think that really affected us because we loved our dad. Like I said, he was Superman. I remember as we were leaving after visiting him, he couldn't go outside, and the doctors wouldn't allow him outside. So he had to roll him in his wheelchair because he was still wheelchair bound, and he couldn't go outside. He had to stay, and I couldn't understand like why he couldn't get in the car. I just had this breakdown, man. I was just crying with tears, like, what is really going on? Why can't he come? Like, what is this? I remember being in the car and I was just crying, bawling tears because I feel like we were just leaving him behind and he was hopeless. And even before that, I remember the early stages when they had to rush him to the ER because his vitals were just going crazy. My brother and I were right there. He was on one side of the bed as they were rolling him to the ER. I was on one side of the bed as they were rolling to the ER. And my grandma was like around us. My mom was around us. And my grandma kept telling us, like, just tell him how much you love him and tell him that it's going to be all right and tell him about your football game. And my brother, he was talking about how many tackles he had and how much he ran the ball. And I was talking about like how many tackles I had and how I was running the ball and I did good because my dad was really a part of our football journey early on. My brother and I were there and we just felt sad like, man, dad can't watch us play football no more. So it kind of took a toll on us a little bit. And I remember my brother and I kissing him on the forehead and just telling him we love him. And the crazy thing, as a kid, still to this day, I can remember the taste of the hospital. I can remember the smell, how he smelled, man. And it was just overwhelming that man, this was going on at this time. So further along, as he started to get better through the grace of God, it was time for him to get out the hospital. At this point, we were kind of being kicked out of our apartment because she couldn't afford rent on her own. And we were forced to move in with my grandma. Now, my grandma is a lovely lady. Even she had her demons that she had to battle as well too. And I used to love to spend the night at my grandma's house and helping her clean and helping her out around the house. And she used to take us and go buy us ice cream and juice and cakes or whatever. And all the other cousins used to get a little bit a little bit jealous because how well she used to treat me. And I was grandma's boy up until a certain point. Moving on, post accident with my dad. Now we live in Fontana, California, in these apartments. Now, anybody who knows Fontana, California knows these apartments. These apartments were very drug infested, gang related area. I mean, helicopters every night, the whole 9 yards. It just was a bad neighborhood. At this time, my dad is heavily on drugs. I mean, I don't know what the severity of drugs he was on. I mean, I don't know. I was a kid at the time, but I knew he was on some type of drugs. I mean, he would come in the house just drunk, high on some type of drug, and he would just go off on my mom. My mom used to have these little black figurines that she kept all over the house. He would pick those things up and just throw it at us. My little brother Jonathan and my dad never had a good relationship because there was one particular night my dad was so high and drunk that I forget what happened. Jonathan said something because he was tired of the bickering that he was doing with my mom, and he wanted to whoop Jonathan. He wanted to discipline Jonathan, and he grabbed a belt and he just kept whooping him. He kept hitting him with it. My mom jumped in, was like telling my dad to stop because he was like going excessive with it. And you can tell my dad was real drunk and high at the time, and that led to another thing. And then my mom kind of pushed him back off of him a little bit. And that just, the fire just erupted even more in him. And he started going off with my mom and started like pushing her, hitting her, whatever. And my family got word of it. They all came over immediately. Didn't even check if I was all right, if my brother Jonathan was all right. It was just so much finger pointing at my mom. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do this? And it was just nothing was my dad's fault. And I think this was the very first time my brothers and I, we were just tired of all the bickering, all the slander, all the verbal and physical abuse. This was the start of it. And I remember one particular incident. I forget what triggered this altercation. And we were at my auntie house, and this particular aunt, she knew what was going on with my dad, but she was on my mom's side because she was there firsthand. She see it every day what was going on, and she didn't agree any of the antics my dad was doing to us. At most times, she stood up for us. She stood up for my mom. And this particular day, we were in the house and my mom and dad were arguing, and my dad was going chaotic and he didn't want to calm down. He was drunk and high and whatever. And whenever my dad gets upset, the family will laugh as if it was comical. And my brother and I, we didn't find it funny because we knew we had to go home with that. My mom didn't find it funny. And my older brother and I, we were so tired, man. We were so tired of his physical abuse to my mom. And we wanted to defend my mom because no one was defending my mom at this time. So we were in the apartments. We were outside of my aunt's apartment and we were sitting there. And I don't know what sparked this altercation, but he was hauling off at my mom. Like he was like hitting her. And my brother and I, we were like, okay, no one's going to stop this. You're in front of my aunties and uncles. I think it was like a party or something. And no one's going to stop this. And everybody's just laughing. Like he's hitting her and no one's coming to her defense. So my brother took upon himself, my older brother, like trying to break it up. Everybody quickly went to my older brother, like, what are you doing? You're a child. You're not supposed to touch your dad. And we're like, he's hitting my mom. No one's doing anything. And then all of a sudden, like he tried to like grab my brother. And I was always defensive over my mom and my little brothers. When I saw him starting to tussle with my older brother, I jumped in and tried to defend my older brother, and I hauled off and I hit my dad. Yes, I hit him right in the face, and everybody kind of took like, "Whoa, what just happened?" And immediately I had aunties, uncles in my face. My grandma was in my face. My dad was in my face. It was like, I can't believe you did that. What in the world? Mind you, like they're watching him beat up my mom. They're watching him like abusing my older brother. So I felt if my brother jumped in, hey man, I gotta jump in there too, man. So and quickly, my dad started chasing us. Now at this time, like we're a little bit more physical than my dad at this time because he's still recovering from car accidents. But it wasn't the fact that we wanted to do that. It was the fact that we just had enough. And that incident just led to a plethora of things that we just like, we were just tired of it. And they ended up taking my grandma ended up taking my dad to her house, and then we end up staying at our home. And the situation diffused. I don't even remember what happened after that. I just remember that incident. And after I hauled off and hit him, he started chasing us around the parking lot. He was very upset, and as he should. I mean, your son just hit you in your face, but it was the only way to protect. I was taught to protect, and still to this day, I'm protective over my family. I just don't like seeing anyone get hurt and not enjoy what he was doing to my mom at the time. So that happened. And then a few days later, another incident happened. We're sitting in our apartment one morning. I think it was like a Saturday morning, maybe a Sunday or Saturday morning, but we're sitting in our apartment. We're playing the video game, Sega Genesis. All of a sudden, the door bursting open. Like two of my uncles and my cousin, they came rushing in. And quickly as they came in, quickly as they left. We had a little back window in our kitchen area and tried to escape through the back window, taking down the screen. And we were like, man, what in the world? And I think my mom was upstairs asleep and my dad was on the couch. And maybe a few seconds later, police officers, maybe a dozen of them, came in with their guns blazing, telling everybody get down. They saw my dad sleep on the couch. They quickly picked him up, placed him under arrest. They seen us. They told us to lay face down. I'm treating us like we were criminals, man. And this was my first experience seeing the police brutality, man. Anybody know Fontana PD back in 2000, maybe 98 to 2000? Like Fontana PD was, man, still to this day there, man, I saw a lot through PD. But so they come in guns blazing. They quickly apprehend my dad. He's sleep on the couch, woke him out of his sleep. We're there. They got guns in our face. I mean, shotguns. I mean, just guns, man. It was a bad situation. So what happened is my uncle and my older cousin, they committed a robbery and they were running from the police. And it so happened they ran through our home and we got the butt end of the stick. So like no more than 2 hours later, the manager came. This is my journey when I started to hate the police. The sheriff made a decision and said they have to be out. So not knowing our situation and who lived there, he wasn't trying to hear anything my mom had to say. My mom was begging him, like, please, I have to go to work tonight. I'm taking care of a disabled man plus my 4 boys. And he wasn't trying to hear none of that. I remember, man, he wasn't trying to hear none of that. He was the captain, man. And he was so frustrated that he didn't catch my 2 uncles and my cousin that he just wasn't trying to hear none of that. So we end up being kicked out because on his watch, he was like, man, you guys got to go. And the manager was like, well, I'm sorry. She was telling my mom, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. This is coming from him. He's the sheriff. So he told us that we had to leave. During this moment, my grandma's there, my uncles, my aunties there. It's a big scene, man. And my grandma's now blaming my mom for how could you let this happen? You got kicked out of your apartment, like just pointing fingers at her. My mom is like bursting out crying because I mean, can you blame her? This is a time where she's trying to make it and she's taking the verbal abuse from my dad. She's trying to raise 4 boys plus my dad. And she doesn't know what's going on. And now she's being told she got to be kicked out. And that was a big toll on us. But was the beginning of the end of her separating from my dad. So now we're forced to live with my grandma. Now, my grandma's house wasn't the best place to live. It was a fun to visit, but to live, it wasn't. Reason being because she had so much junk, man. So much junk in the front yard, to the living room, to the porch, to the backyard. I mean, everything was just full of junk. She even had a pool back there that was, at once upon a time, was clean, perfect, but that ended up being filled up with junk. It was just a terrible place to live. But she had a mobile home in front of her house, and we was forced to live in that mobile home. So now we're 4 boys, a mother, and my dad is in this mobile home. And I think this is where we just was fed up. This particular night, as we were in this mobile home, my dad just hauled off and hit my mom, and we were just tired. So that morning, my dad ended up going inside the house where my grandma was, and my mom came to us, was like, all right, what do you guys want to do? And literally, my brothers and I, we don't talk as much, but we all had the same idea, like, we want to get out of here. So my mom ended up calling her mom, my granny, and was like, hey, I guess they had a conversation. My granny agreed for us to come over there. And my mom was like, I'm not coming back. Man, I'll tell you, we were ready to leave. The next morning, we jetted out of there and left. So my mom was separating from my dad. I didn't feel bad at all. I was happy. I was elated, relieved that this was never going to happen again. So that right there took a turn in my life. And so now my mom's a single mom. And